Move to agenda item 3. Chair Earl, this is the Standards and Assessment Committee report. Are you ready? Okay, we'll turn time over to you.
All right, let me pull up our agenda here. So the first item that we have moving forward is action item, I have 8.2, but I guess it's not that on our, that's on our committee. It would be, the action is that the board approves R277-700, the elementary and secondary school general core draft 1 on second and final reading.
Okay, the motion before the board is that the board approve R277-700, the elementary and secondary school general core draft 1 on second and final reading. I've got member Carey.
Thank you, Chair. I don't know who best to address this question to, but on line 296.
Let's get your question out there.
Yeah, it talks about, you can complete a course or school-sponsored activity that emphasizes verbal communication, provided that the instruction is primarily dedicated to civic education, including, and then it says, policy analysis, government systems, but 296 says civic engagement. And I would just like a better understanding of what that means, because it looks like we're taking learning in the classroom to engagement. So are we talking, we can organize a group of students to go to a pro-life demonstration sponsored by a religious entity? Can we organize, protests for or against particular, what does civic engagement mean?
Chair Earl, do you remember that discussion in your committee?
No, but I'm just curious. Let's go. I just wanted to get back into the law and make sure to see if it referenced it there or if we added it. And if not, then I think we do. I agree that there probably needs to be some parameters or even removal from that. So can we just take just a second? I'm not sure who on our staff, does someone already looked at that? Is that what it states in law? Okay, would you give us the code so we can look real quick? Okay.
Are there any, does that answer your question, Member Carey, or do you want to continue?
I think the question was summarized correctly. I'm just waiting for, and then I do have one other area that I have a question on. That
is your other question for staff or for the chair? I'm wondering if we can move while they look.
The chair may be able to answer it. It's on line 334. And it talks about an LEA shall use board-approved summative assessments to assess student mastery of the following subjects. And I know that the board, several board members have expressed concern about the number of assessments, the number of testing. And I would just like to know, when we say board-approved summative assessments for these 3 areas, which assessments have been board-approved and which ones are currently being used? Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, thank you.
I mean, sure. I can give what I think, and then if staff want to correct me, I believe it would be the RISE for our high school, which we just changed last year from what we previously were using, and then the ACT would be the 11th grade. But someone correct me if I'm wrong on those. The RISE, then, yep, and then also the ACT would be that 11th grade piece.
So it's our standard end of year testing that is the board approved. Does that answer your question, Member Carey?
Just to confirm, then that was my understanding, but there's no other board-approved assessments for those areas enumerated in A, B, and C?
Chair Earl?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay, thank you, Chair.
Thank you. And then circling back to the question regarding line 296, the civic engagement. It looks like we're still researching that. Elise, please.
Hi, Elise Newey, Deputy Superintendent of Policy. So that is direct language from Representative Doug Walton's Bill 381 last year, where these changes came from. So that the A, B, and C are directly from his bill language. That's what we're bringing from.
Follow up, Member Carey.
Thank you. Then I would, if appropriate, I'm concerned that if we put civic engagement there as required in the law without any additional defining or parameters around that, that we could find ourselves entertaining a host of engagement that in many times would be appropriate, but also uh, fall outside of the bounds of appropriateness that we've set. Again, and maybe staff can address this. It's a hypothetical, but as I was reading this, I thought, okay, so a group of students want to attend a pro-life rally sponsored by, a church. Would that be permitted under that particular phrase of civic engagement? Would they be able to qualify for credit hours? Right, like for that particular event. Because has civic did Representative Welton's bill define civic engagement? I guess is really the question, or is it just okay? There it is. It just says civic engagement, and again, that's so broad. Are we comfortable as a board just saying, yeah, we're okay with that? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I've got lights from. Oh, Elise, did you have go ahead?
I was just going to clarify just a couple of things in the code. Again, the board can do what you would like, but that is as a follow-up. So that is with FI. So it would have to be a course or a school-sponsored activity, and there are other laws and rules surrounding what a school-sponsored activity could involve and what it could be. And so there would be some restrictions outside of this particular code as to what could be a school-sponsored activity that would involve civic engagement, but just as that extra point.
Follow-up, Member Carey.
Thank you. And I thought the same thing initially when I read that, because it does say school-sponsored activity, but then it doesn't say and, but or. So it says completing a course or a school-sponsored activity, emphasizing verbal communication, providing that a significant portion of the course or activity that is dedicated to. It doesn't say school activity. It intentionally removes the word school, and it uses the word activity as dedicated to civic education. So if the solution is just reinserting the word school before activity, but that's in code, right? So we can't do that. So the strong line, and I agree with Deputy Newey, where it says school-sponsored, well, because of the phraseology, it just limits it to that portion of the statement. But when we talk about civic engagement, it doesn't say school activity, it just says activity. And to me, that throws open all activity. It doesn't have to be school-sponsored, at least according to the way I am reading and understand the code. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I've got Member Bogus.
Sorry. Yeah, I just had a very similar question in that are we talking about protest or are we talking about civic engagement, testifying at the Capitol, emailing your legislator? Because to me, we're going down this. Member Carey brings up a good point about different rallies, but that's very different from appropriate engagement as opposed to leaving the school and being derelict in our academic instruction and doing other things. So I'm just trying to clarify what we're talking about. Thank you.
Chair Earl.
I wonder if it could just be tied back, if we add on there that is tied to standards or tied to Utah standards. So it's not just an open end type of a thing. It actually goes back to some provision. I don't know. It's a possible suggestion.
Member Carey.
I think, Chair, maybe this, and I'll make this motion, and to me this is the just thinking while moving, but if our proposed rule on 296 says civic engagement, related to a school-sponsored activity, we then put those guide rails back on that I believe the unclarity in the statute opens up. So the motion would be on line 296 that it should read civic engagement related to a school-sponsored activity.
Before we seek a second, Member Carey, we're looking at the law currently how it reads, and then I'm looking at the rule. Does the rule, because the rule says completing a course or school, it's same thing. A course would be guided under the school, and then or school sponsored activity, but it doesn't have the same exact verbiage as law. So if you look at 291 and 293 on your screen, does that cover what you're seeing? So we're tightening it up here already in rule with the parameters set of the school. Does that make sense? I'm curious. I'm just asking the question because you're welcome to make the motion. I just wondered if this satisfies what we're trying to do. Go ahead. Please respond if you're willing.
So again, my concern is that here, when it says provided that the instruction is primarily dedicated to, and I can see how policy analysis is instruction-based. I can understand how government systems is instruction-based. But when we talk about civic engagement, to me, that's activity, that's action. It's not to say that learning doesn't take place there. Perhaps some of the best learning does. But it's not traditional instruction as our rules treat that word. And because of that, I don't know whether or not school-sponsored activity would be encompassed by the word instruction. That's my concern. I think we can address it by the amendment, by making it clear that civic engagement, yes, we want that. We want our students learning how to be involved, what to do, how to do it. But again, within the guidelines that our public schools operate, which is it needs to be related to a school-sponsored activity.
Okay, let's move forward then, and let's get the amendment on the table here so that we can seek a second. Will you repeat your amendment? I'm sorry, I know, and I don't know if it was written down. Nope, I know. Good luck. I threw you off. I'm sorry.
Need civic engagement related to, yep, thank you.
So the motion is to amend line 296 to read civic engagement related to a school-sponsored activity. So related to a school-sponsored activity is the new language added. It's been seconded. Back to you, Member Carey.
Yeah, Chair, I won't belabor the point. I understand what you're saying with we do kind of address it in the preface, but again, the phraseology, the use of instruction when we're talking about activity, I feel this adds that level of clarity that we need. Thank you.
Member Bogus.
Thank you, sir. So through the chair to Member Carey, what happens when the school or the educator actually sponsors the protest? That is my concern, because in my time, I have firsthand knowledge where a teacher and a series of teachers carved out time for kids to create posters. They gave them the afternoon off to go march on school property, along the fence line, along the road, and it was considered a school-sponsored activity, and most of them had no clue what they were talking about. They were just following directions for a grade. So what happens when we frame it like this as opposed to linking it to standards?
Member Carey, response?
Yeah, and staff may be more articulate in this area, but I would think that when we say school-sponsored activity, it means that the school is operating within the confines of all of the rules that we have previously passed and established. To the extent they're not, then they're in violation of those rules, and the consequences should follow. But that would be my assumption. But if that's incorrect, staff can correct me. Thank you.
I don't know if it's worthless, but I agree with your assumption. But Member Brenton?
I just had a question because it's been in the news this week that we had Hillcrest High School sponsoring an anti-ICE protest. So what happens when something like that comes out? Is the school held responsible? I think there may have been more than one. Is there a way to word it so that protests aren't allowed in school time, but that it is related to standards with civic engagement? I would ask Elise, like, where's our responsibility in that?
Deputy Newey?
Thank you. So just to ground us in this rule and what this rule change was doing originally. So it was added last year in the legislature, a new requirement. That's the civics. I'm trying to remember what exactly it was called. But it was Doug Welton's bill that required a new civics requirement in high school. So UVU, and in collaboration with USBE and you all, is working on standards for that course. In his bill, however, he allowed for an exception. So if a student was taking something else that would be considered equivalent, they could take that course as part of their requirement instead of this American Government and Civics course. So this is for those exceptions. Now, when a school applies for, or an LEA says that they want to have a course available as a equivalent, they have to still meet all of the same standards. So it'll be required in whatever they're doing for the civic engagement and verbal communications, that they would still be required to meet all of the standards that are in that American Government and Civics course. So it will have to be tied to those standards that you all agree upon in order for it to count. So if that makes sense.
Thank you, Chair Earl.
Said, I wonder if instead of just referencing a school activity, it's referencing tied to the standards. Once again, it's not just anything, it's tied directly to those pieces that we've approved. So.
Okay. Is there a motion in there, or just? Go ahead, Chair Earl.
Yeah, and maybe we have to vote on this first, but I would put it, provided that the instruction is primarily dedicated to civics education as outlined in approved standards.
Well, hold on one second. So you said we need to vote on this first, and then a motion's coming?
I think we'll have to, because it's right. They're not.
Okay. Yeah. So the motion that is before us right now, then, and I don't see any other lights, so I'm going to restate. I think we're ready for a vote. The motion is to amend line 296 to read civic engagement with new language related to a school-sponsored activity. Let's go ahead and vote.
Dedicated to civics education.
Okay, that passes 9 in favor, 4 opposed with 2 absent. Those opposed being Member Lear, Member Green, Member Reel, and Member Bogus. Chair Earl.
After civics education, just as outlined, or sorry, what did I say before? Consistent with approved standards. Or approved, well, just approved standards.
So for your motion, Member or Chair Earl, are you striking the language that was just adopted and replacing it with this?
No.
So how would that?
It would sit after civics education.
where
So it
is
says, provided that the instruction is primarily dedicated to civics
I see.
education
292? Thank you.
consistent with board, we probably ought to put board approved standards with a capital B.
With that, you get that capital B in there.
Yep.
I want to make sure. Okay. Okay. So the motion then is to amend line 292 to add after civics education consistent with board approved standards. Do we have a second? Second. Back to you, Chair Earl.
I just think it creates just what was said before, that guardrail, a direction. So I think it keeps it more consistent and it gives us something to rely back on. So.
Okay. Member Green?
Yeah, still a little hesitant on all of this. I know we're trying to fix maybe a potential problem. I just know, what was in the news this week around, social justice causes, calling it civic and community engagement. The flyers that were posted for Hillcrest High School in the Canyon School District, where it wasn't just the high school, but it was also the Union Junior High. About 150 junior high age kids being led by an adult woman, assuming it was a teacher, with F ICE sign and the like. This is really difficult. And where arguments have been that we are social justice activism and these types of levels of ignorant engagement, if I may, is encouraged in this realm, we need to be very thoughtful in what we're doing here, because F ICE is a slogan that was also at a career day for our students. They're just surrounded by it's justified by civic, because that's apparently what we feel is the only thing that justifies civic engagement. So are we clear? Have we been clear enough in what this could actually look like? I don't know, I'm a little bit hesitant towards it.
Seeing no additional lights, let's prepare a vote. Oh, Member Lear.
If what Member Green describes is accurate, and her assumptions are correct, I don't think anyone feels like that's a good thing. But this is about the credits students can earn, not what schools should do. So I think we ought to stay focused on that. And if there are issues related to other activities by LEAs, then that can be dealt with separately.
Okay. Member Green.
I think that's where my concern falls, is just 3A3, civic engagement related to a school-sponsored activity. And we've seen handfuls and handfuls and handfuls of things that the power of authority of a teacher over young children trumps even logical levels of civic engagement. So, and it is school-sponsored because they are the teachers, so they move and formulate those actions. So I don't know, I think it's a real thing that actually does exist often.
Okay. Chair Earl.
Yeah, I think that's why directing it back to specific standards instead of just a broad. Anyways.
Okay. So the motion before us is to amend line 292 to add after civics education consistent with board approved standards. Let's go ahead and vote. That passes unanimously with 2 absent. Back to, so the underlying motion then is that the board approve. Okay. The underlying motion then that is before the board currently is that the board approve R277-700, the elementary and secondary school general core draft 1 as amended on second and final reading. Let's go ahead and vote. Okay, that passes unanimously with 2 absent. Back to you, Chair Earl.
So this is item number 3.3, and it's the board approve R277717 high school course grading requirements draft 2 on second and final reading.
The motion before the board is that the board approve R277-717 high school course grading requirements draft 2 on second and final reading. Sure. Go back to you, Chair Earl.
Yeah, I've had a couple of questions, and specifically around some of our online providers. And hopefully I can answer this. I hope it correlates, and if I'm off, someone maybe from policy can tell me. There were just questions around if an online provider is providing instruction and they, let's see, now I'm trying to remember the nuance here. They are providing the remediation pieces for sections of classes that maybe a student needs additional help with. My understanding, if it's teacher directed, that's different than the packet method. Packet method means it's something that has minimal teacher guidance versus something that is a teacher directed either intervention or remediation or whatever. Those are different. Now, if I'm incorrect, someone correct me on that. They're whispering, so maybe they're going to correct me on that. So there was just some questions around that, whether, once it's online, does that mean you can't replace the course credit? So anyways, I don't know, maybe someone can
Did
share
you
if
want
there's some
clarity
additional-
from
Yeah.
Elise? Go ahead, Elise.
No, you're accurate, Board Member Earl. So on lines 42 through 45, it defines teacher-led, and that is just that the teacher directs the instructional process.
Which could be
that
online.
Could be,
Right.
as long as the assessment and the direction is coming from a in-person teacher.
I just want to make sure that was kind of out in the public because there were a few questions I got over that. So
Okay, thank you. Member Bogus.
Thank you, sir. I'd like to bring us to line 72 through 74, I believe. And through the chair, and I'm not certain actually to whom, I just am wondering, and I'm going to just make up something totally out of the blue. Let's say a student chose to have an elective and it's AP Music Theory. And they thought it was going to be easy because, all music classes are easy. And they soon find out that that's actually for very advanced thinkers. And they don't get a good grade and they need to replace that grade. But then they have to choose the same elective that they realized they didn't have the capacity for to begin with. I'm just, genuine question here that concerns me, because just like not everybody is a calculus mathematician, not everybody can do AP Music Theory. And I'm wondering what we're locking ourselves into and locking our students into with these 3 lines here.
For clarity, let me ask, you're saying if a student takes dance, figures out that they're not a dancer and fails the course,
Yeah.
can they take orchestra and replace the dance grade with an orchestra grade?
Well, or underwater basket weaving. I'm just making stuff up, but my concern is that basically, if they have to retake something and it's an elective, so we're not talking about algebra. We're not talking about grammar, usage, and mechanics. We're talking about things that could be advanced coursework in different areas, and I don't know where these lines take us at their logical conclusion, and I don't think they were thought through to their logical conclusion. And I just want to make certain we understand what we're doing here when we pass this, because I fully don't understand what we're doing.
Member
With this
Carey, is
language.
your question to these lines?
It is, but then I have.
Okay.
But I was just going to ask the same question.
Can I ask, can I just seek some clarity from maybe Chair Earl or staff? This is new language. Where did this originate from? Chair, hold on one second.
I can speak a little bit to some of the questions that we've been fielding from our staff have been fielding from the field, right? And those centered around taking an elective class and then coming in and wanting to replace it with a different type of course. And so if we have staff here, maybe they can fill that a little bit better, but that's where it was saying, okay, you're taking something here and then you're trying to replace it with something completely different. So there's that question. And I think this was trying to create some resolution to that. So anyways, I don't know, is there additional?
Yeah,
Elise?
so this is LEA, coming from LEA questions that our staff have been receiving often. There was also last year in the session, a bill was passed on packets and how we use packets. So I think that kind of those two conversations are overlapping, and the types of credit recovery and things like that we can do. So to answer your question directly, Board Member Bogus, you can always replace the grade requirement, the course requirement. So in order to graduate, the graduation requirement, you can replace that with a different course that meets the same standards or requirement, right? But you cannot replace the grade for that course unless you retake that course in particular, because it is tied directly to that course. So that student could take a different class and still graduate and meet the graduation requirements. They just couldn't replace the grade for that particular specific course.
That satisfies my question, I believe. Thank you.
Thank you. Member Carey?
On that issue, yes, Chair. But I do. Yep. So this would be on lines 42 through 45. So staff indicated that yes, this means a teacher doesn't have to actually be there; they just need to direct it, and that seems to be supported in line 43. But then it says not only do they have to direct it, they have to manage the delivery of the core standard. So I'd like a better understanding of the differential between directs and manages. Like, what does that look like practically? And then I have another question in that same section, Chair. Thank you.
And I don't know if we have, Elise, you can take,
Want me
your
to?
eyes tell me you're going to take a shot at it, but you're not confident. Go
Tell
ahead.
me how I do. So that management piece, really, like if you compare a paper packet, right? I could send you home with a paper packet. You'd be on your own if there are questions or if we need to go in a different direction because of your questions and your interests. We couldn't do that because it was just the paper packet. Whereas like a Canva course, right? It is online and you're doing it independently, but I can see it on my end and I can manage and move things in a different direction if I need to, or provide direct feedback. That kind of a thing would be the management piece. If that makes sense.
So, thank you, Chair. So the teacher would not be able to direct someone else to manage the delivery of the core standards?
No, I don't believe so. I mean, if it were like I think they could do something where they watch a video, right, that's produced by somebody else that meets the standard and the teacher provides feedback on an assignment based on that video, right? But the overall meeting the standards would be led, directed, managed by the teacher of record.
Can I jump in just
Please.
quickly? We do have schools that have instructors who will teach a class that is led by a licensed educator. That actually happens, and that is one of the ways that many of our schools work throughout the state of Utah. So I don't know if that helps as well. The teacher is still responsible. So if someone were assigned, albeit a substitute or an instructor that helps out, the teacher still directs and manages what's happening with that content. I don't know if that helps, but I think we're getting there.
I just want to make sure it doesn't preclude that from happening with the changes that are being suggested. And I guess my concern is that I have not heard from many educators that this change is needed. And I haven't seen any data suggesting that this rule change is needed. So I guess part of this is just led by curiosity of why are these changes being proposed? Where is this flood of data? Like, are we seeing that students in classes where this is not happening are suffering or underachieving?
And I've got some board members, and Elise, I don't know if you wanted to respond here.
I just, once again, so just in this particular definition, this was referring specifically to grade replacement and kind of that packet conversation based on the bill that was passed last year. So the problem that that bill was trying to solve was students taking packets home and replacing a wholesale grade on a course that was teacher led, right? And with your peers and all of that, and then taking home a packet and being able to wholesale replace that grade. And that's what that bill was trying to stop. So this is making that differentiation between what would be teacher led and therefore equivalent and what would not. So that's where this comes from.
No, but my question was on the data. Like, where's the data suggesting that the old system was malfunctioning? And having that data and understanding that data would help me better understand if these changes will rectify or address that alleged deficiency. Right.
Yeah, and I guess I would be in a similar space, because what I did was I took it into a general space, and Elise is saying, no, let's refocus on what this rule is. And so, and you're focused on this rule, member Carey, as far as I can tell. You didn't go beyond like I did. You're saying, why in this rule is this an issue? Is that correct?
Yeah, because in the situations that I'm aware of, it's always been teacher-led with the packets. So to the extent that this is happening well beyond that, where's the data saying, well, if it's not teacher-led, it's non-teacher-led? What's the differential in outcomes? Where is that data? Otherwise, we're just making a rule because we think it's going to solve a problem, but without the data, we don't know. So all I'm saying is, if we're saying teacher-led outcomes with packets are superior to the outcomes of non-teacher-led packet outcomes, great. Show me the statistics. Show me where we've done that audit. Show me where we've done that research. Otherwise, what is this based on other than a supposition? That's all I'm asking.
You're asking for an audit? No, I'm just
No,
kidding.
I'm just asking for the data. If it's there, and if it's not, Chair, I understand. Yeah, I'd like to know.
Yeah. Elise, I know Member Kelly wants to take a crack at this as well, but go ahead, Elise.
I'll pass it on to Member Good. I will say, so this is our response to legislation. So this isn't something that we were collecting data on and responding. This was a response to legislation that was passed and clarifying. We do get phone calls, I will say just anecdotally from staff, from LEAs asking about clarification on that legislation. So those are our two data points that we have.
Okay, thank you. Member Kelly, you want to add?
Yeah, mine will be anecdotally, because I'll share with you through the chair, Board Member Carey, just my experience, and I think the frustration at a classroom level is that if you fail my financial literacy class, and then you go and sign up for a packet of some sort. It takes you 2 weeks to finish that packet. You get an A on that packet course. That A then replaces the F that you had in my class, right? And I think the frustration at the classroom level is where's the accountability for the student missing an entire semester of class, failing the class, and then, it's easy to then go take the packet replaces the grade. And so I think this was an attempt by legislators to, curb that a little bit and hold those students accountable for the grade that when they failed the class. And so I think that's what this is saying, is it's saying, if you failed my financial literacy class, but then you go across the hall and you take that teacher's financial literacy class and you pass that teacher's financial literacy class, that grade can replace my grade, but if he goes and takes a 2-week packet, that grade cannot replace my grade. And if that, does that clarify, Elise, does that help? Or
I've got member Earl.
Yeah, and the law that passed last year does what you're asking for. It asks us to actually differentiate so that we can actually have that information. So you're right, we don't have, spreadsheets of numbers and stuff, but it does ask us because there is that question, what is the impact? What is happening in the schools? And it required that collection so we could do a further analysis. So
Member Carey.
Yeah, so Chair, I'll just move on, and I appreciate Board Member Kelly's insights. But line 45, it says provides direct feedback. And I want to know what direct feedback means in terms of just feedback. Does that mean in person? Does that mean it can be over electronic? It's a note that's left on Canvas. Again, as we've said several times at the board, words matter, and provides direct feedback is certainly different than provides feedback. So I want to know why we're using the word direct. Thank you.
Thank you. Superintendent Hart.
I'm starting to hear some of these conversations, or I'm continuing to hear some of these conversations up at the Capitol. I believe that this goes to perhaps the teacher and student rather than AI and student and computerized feedback. And I think this goes to the human interaction, and I think we're going to see a couple more bills that specify that teaching should be between a human and a human rather than a computer and a human. That's where I think it's coming from.
Member Carey.
Yeah, and look, I agree with what Superintendent Hart just shared. The benefit from having an instructor who is concerned, and to use Board Member Davis, who loves their students, is it's almost immeasurable, but apparently people say they can measure it. But so when we say direct feedback, are we saying, and this is my question, are we saying this has to be the teacher sitting down writing a handwritten note? Can this be AI generated? Like, what does direct mean versus just feedback? Because we say the feedback has to be direct. My next question would be, does the assessment have to be direct? Because we don't say direct feedback and direct assessment, it's just assessment. So I'm really just trying to understand what is driving this, because it's like we're carving a very particular path with lines 42 through 45. And I'm not sure if I understand, like Superintendent Hart said, what the real driver is here. And without knowing that, it's difficult to say this is a good policy or a bad policy. So I need that understanding of why the direct feedback. Does direct apply just to the feedback, or does the assessment also have to be direct? And if not, why not? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Member Carey, let me express my thoughts on these lines. This brings the teacher into it. This says no more can you just be a sign and let go. This means that the teacher is directly involved. And so when you talk about provides direct feedback and assessment of student mastery, the teacher is aware of that directly. It's not going through other channels. It needs to come directly to the teacher. And then same with the assessment of the student mastery, the teacher is involved. That's what this section of rule is doing. It's mandating, telling the teacher that you are part of this process. Member Carey, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. I may be the only one who misunderstands, so I'll just end here. But so when you say that, do you mean that the teacher is the one now providing that feedback directly to the student without an intermediary, without through Canvas? It is the teacher doing this one-on-one with the student?
As part of an earlier comment, I don't believe it's necessarily one-on-one with the student, but they are directly involved. Meaning, I know this, I cannot say, okay, member Carey, here's your assignment, report back to member Longacre, right? I would be a part of that assignment from beginning to end.
And could your feedback also be left through an intermediary such as Canvas?
I believe it could.
And under this, direct would cover that.
Direct would cover that, but the teacher is the almost like the AI comments. The teacher is involved. It's not turned over. So if it's beginning, here's your course, do your thing. I'm going to get eyes on it at the end. I'm going to get the direct feedback because I'm connected to Canvas or whatever. I see what's going on. I see the assessment, and then I work with the child. That's how I interpret that.
Okay, and that helps. I just think the wording is clunky, but thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Member Kelly, you want to add or can we vote? I know pressure.
You know, I want to ask a question to Deputy Newey. What is it? I don't. Yeah, Deputy Newey. There we go. I'm curious. In this rule or in any of our rules, and that might be a very broad question, but the grade replacement part of it, is there any time frame of how long a grade can be changed?
So from what we understand, it's anytime that they're in high school, so before they graduate.
So anytime from 9 through 12.
That's my understanding. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm getting head nods.
If a grade is posted in a student's sophomore year, can that grade be changed by a teacher in their senior year? Is there any rule that governs whether that is possible? Is it legal?
So you're saying without them retaking the course,
Correct.
just the teacher?
Yes, they don't retake the course.
Yeah, our understanding that if nothing has changed about the student's performance and their mastery of the standards, then the grade should not change, and then that would get to other rules and things that we have going on.
Okay, and I'll share my thoughts with my question because I was curious if this rule could potentially, but one of the things that I continue to struggle with as a classroom teacher is when a student fails a class, let's say their sophomore year, and then counselors and administrators are looking at their graduation requirements and saying, oh no, and then they come back and ask me to give them an assignment to fix a grade, from when they were a sophomore. And I feel like ethically a lot of times it puts me in a pinch where I'm saying, you failed this class as a sophomore, go take the class again and replace the credit rather than coming to me and asking me as a teacher to do an additional assignment to change the grade from their sophomore year. So, that's, anyways, it may be a little bit of a tangent, but yeah, I was curious. Thank you.
Thank you. Member Lear.
I completely agree with the ideas of this change in the rule itself. But my greater concern is that grading, however unfair or wrong or troubling it is to us, has always been the purview of LEAs, and I will. I think this level of guidance and direction from rule is appropriate, but I am, even though I may disagree what an LEA does, and I, as Member Kelly points out, I hate that idea and that concept, and I've heard about it for decades from teachers. And I remember when this particular bill was passed, that troubled me then, that students could replace grades at any time during their high school years. However, it's still something in the purview of LEAs and the case law goes in that direction, and that it's a pretty solid educational principle that I'm not going to challenge right now. But I do admit that some of those concerns, that I have some of those concerns.
Thank you. Do we have, Member Kelly, do you have a motion? Okay, I would love to move on. Member Kelly, go ahead.
No, I think what I'm trying to say, we need to we need to try to protect the integrity of the teacher giving the grade, and when teachers are being pressured by administrators, and that's where. Well, but what responsibility? Yeah, and that's where are the administrators being held accountable, and who holds them accountable? They are the employer. They're the LEA.
All right. So let's move to the. I don't know if we had any amendments. We just had questions on this. I believe the motion before the board is that the board approve R277-717 high school course grading requirements draft 2 on second and final reading. Seeing no lights, let's vote. Member Hall? That passes unanimously, 13 in favor, 2 absent. Back to you, Chair Earl.
Our next item is the para-educator standards. And so let me read the motion that came out of committee, that the board approve the proposed Utah standards for instructional para-educators.
Thank you. The motion before the board is that the board approve the proposed Utah standards for instructional para-educators. I have a question, Member Bogus.
I have to pull it up. I apologize. I thought I had it. So we're on item 3.5. Sorry. Draft 2. So could someone help me understand what it means to adhere to the legitimate exercise of, and I just have no clue what that would mean in an educational context.
Give us some context. Where are you looking at on this?
Oh, please accept my apologies. I got there and I just expected everybody could see my screen. On draft 2, which is what I believe we're talking about right here, under E, it's on, I believe it's on page 2. Let me count. Oh, no, it's a few pages in, but there's no page numbers. So it's under skills, E, adhere to the legitimate exercise of constitutional, legal, or civil rights of children, youth, and their families. I don't, in an educational context for paraeducators, what does that mean?
Can we make sure we find that? I'm still looking. I see skills E, support students in the use of adaptive equipment.
It's under standard 2. And
Standard
these
2
aren't
skills.
These aren't numbered, so do apologize.
see.
It's actually on
There we
page
go.
5. Should be in red there.
I see it now. Oh, there it is on the screen as well. And Chair Earl, I don't know if you want to respond to this with the discussion that took place here.
We could use a different word than adhere, but the idea was that it wasn't around civil and human rights. It was around legitimate exercise of constitutional, legal, or the rights of youth and children. So it's just it's an awareness that these individuals that are working with students in this area, professionalism and ethical practices had a basic understanding. So if adhere's not the right word, certainly we could entertain a better verb for that. So we felt it was greater clarity than the current language that was there.
I'm not sure if we don't have a motion. I know, Joe.
No,
hold
I'm
on.
just speaking to the verb.
Yeah, no. You're not speaking to a motion. I'm calling back to Member Boggs. We don't have a motion. You were seeking clarity. Did that answer your question?
Well, so yeah, it does answer my question, and maybe that is the struggle, is that to adhere to someone else's rights is not actually a thing. Maybe to honor them, to allow for the legitimate exercise. And I would just make that motion. Then I move that we replace the word adhere with allow for the legitimate exercise, and then we can entertain the discussion at that point. Thank you, and I appreciate Member Earl's response.
So the motion then, there's a motion to amend, and this is standard 2 under skills E. The motion is to strike adhere and replace with
Allow for, I believe, would be better
Allow
language
for.
at this time. And I'm open to the discussion, but I know in order to get the discussion going, we need a motion on the floor.
So let's see if we can get that up on the screen, get that motion correct, and then we will seek a second and move to debate.
Should it be the words adhere to whoever's driving? And if I misstated, I apologize. Yeah,
And then also in this motion, yep, there it is, standard
that's
2.
fine with me. That, may I change my motion?
It's not been seconded, it's still yours, go ahead.
So it's been suggested that have a knowledge of. Yeah. I apologize. Have a knowledge of instead of adhere to. Is that Member Earl? Yeah, I think that is a better framing of that. And I appreciate the discussion because I really was trying to figure out how you adhere to other people's rights. And so I was taking issue with the language because of the word adhere. But if that's the comment, then I think if we just change that it makes more sense and we'll have, it will play out better at the end of the row.
Okay, so I'm assuming, let me state the motion. I'm assuming there's a second and a spoken to, but we don't have anything official yet.
I was trying to second allow, but I can't second knowledge because it's under skills.
Okay, so the motion is to amend standard 2 skills E, strike the word adhere to and replace with have a knowledge of. Is that your motion before I seek a second? There's some debate here.
I don't care what it is. Let's just, and then just amend it.
So do we have a second to this have a knowledge of? There's a second. You spoke to it a little bit, Member Bogus. Okay. Okay, Member Earl, I've got you, and then I've got Vice Chair Wood. And Elise is,
Oh, I'm good. I just think this section, our pair is just, it's to create a broad understanding. So I think that language does that without creating some kind of a overburden on both schools and the individuals. So
Elise.
Apologies, Chair. I will just point out that there is knowledge on the top. So if you go up to page 4, there is knowledge that they're supposed to have, and then this is in the skills section. So things that they're able to do. So I don't know if, as a board, you want to change that to maybe respect or some sort of action word, but you can do as you want.
Okay, Vice Chair Wood.
Thank you. I would have seconded the allow for because of that specific reason. It's under a skills and instead of a knowledge. So I would move to amend to show respect for.
There's a motion to amend the amendment to remove have a knowledge of and add show respect for. Do we have a second?
Yes.
We have a second. Back to you, Vice Chair Wood.
I think I spoke to it, although I do see that B says respect without any extra. Do we just need a single verb to that? I'll keep the show respect for. Thank you.
Okay. So we're keeping the show respect for. So the motion to amend is to amend standard 2 skills E, strike the word, well, we're actually amending the amendment, which is the same. Strike the word adhere to and replace with show respect for. I don't see any lights. Is there any opposition to this amendment to the amendment? Seeing none or hearing none online, The amendment is now strike the word adhere to and replace with show respect for, essentially the same motion. I'll ask again, is there any opposition to this? Member Carey.
I don't know, Chair, not opposition, but I am concerned that, we take adhere to, which is a definitive, look, you've got to do this. And now we're introducing a big range of ambiguity by saying, well, you need to show respect too. And so if that's the will of the board, then it's a great change. But in my opinion, you are taking something that's very clear, we've got to do it, to, well, you need to show respect for it, which, that's a stratification of whether you hit that metric or not. And if the board is okay with adding that, then great. If not, again, it would just be a time for reflection. Thank you.
Member Bogus?
So I agree with Member Carey, which is why I said allow for to begin with, because the way it's framed, you're adhering to other people's rights, which is different than adhering to the practice of other people's rights. It just the language is clunky and doesn't make sense, but I think he makes a great point. So I think I'm open to an amendment. I mean, I have no whatever. I just would like this to make sense in practice, because I don't think our paras can adhere to the rights of other people. They can honor the rights of other people. They can allow for the practice of other people's rights. I just don't think they can adhere to them. And again, disagree with me, make me smarter. I just think the language is not correct in this frame.
Okay, here's where we're at. We're on an amendment. I don't have any other motions. If this is not ready, send it back to committee. Because you know what I mean? If we don't have a solution right now, we need to think about this more. But I'm going to push forward because there's no motions here. So seeing no lights. Okay, Member Bogus.
I move to amend the pending motion with replace with allow for.
So there's a motion to amend the amendment, and that is to strike show respect for and add allow for. Is that correct? Do we have a second? Second. Back to you, Member Bogus, if you'd like to speak to it.
I think just considering the conversation around the room, this addresses everyone's concerns. And if it does not, please feel free to make a motion.
Seeing no additional lights, the motion before us is an amendment to the amendment, and that is to strike the word adhere to. No. Now it's strike the word show respect for and add and replace with allow for. That is the amendment to the amendment. Seeing no hands, is there opposition to this? Do we need to take a different kind of vote? I'm not seeing any opposition, so this is the amendment. So now we just took care of the amendment to the amendment. The amendment then is to amend Standard 2, Skills E, strike the word adhere to, and replace with allow for. Again, for the sake of time, I ask, is there any opposition to this? Seeing none, we're counting that as a unanimous vote. And this rule has now been amended. We are on the underlying motion now that says the board approved the proposed Utah standards for instructional paraeducators. Seeing no lights here, let's take a vote on this one. Member Earl?
We're voting on draft 2.
Draft 2 was not on there, so let me restate the motion.
Yes, please. Sorry, I apologize. I didn't
let's
read it out
erase.
as such, but I just want to make sure that the public knows it's draft 2.
Let's stop this and redo it. Let me
My
reread
apologies.
this. In my haste, Chair Earl, that's on me. The motion is that the board approve the proposed Utah standards for instructional paraeducators draft 2 as amended.
That would be accurate.
Okay.
Thank you.
And when that is up, we will vote. There it is. Thank you. Vote, please. That passes unanimously with 2 absent. Back to you, Chair Earl.
Okay, our next item is that the board approve R277324 Professional Paraeducator Programs, Assignments, and Qualifications, Draft 2 on second and final reading. And this incorporates the document we just did into this, just for your awareness. So that's why we did it first.
So the motion before the board is that the board approve R277-324 Paraprofessional Paraeducator Programs, Assignments, and Qualifications, Draft 2 on second and final reading. Member Bogus?
Sorry, I just wanted to be clear. The only changes I see in here is a date and the removal of the oversight category. Do I have the right draft?
Chair Earl, is this the one that came out of committee with the updated document as well?
The standards were updated, but we already used standards before. So we didn't have to put those in there because we already used them. This is just a review of those standards and then modifications to make sure we're up to date. So in other words, it's kind of like in continuation. But
Okay, so let me restate the motion. We'll get ready for a vote. And that is that the board approve R277-324 Paraprofessional Paraeducator Programs, Assignments, and Qualifications, Draft 2 on second and final reading. Let's go ahead and vote. That passes unanimously with 2 absent. Back to you, Chair Earl.
okay, that completes this particular item. We'll be on 4, but I'm asking if we could take a 5-minute break. A little recess.
Yeah, I'm getting a yes,
get a-
please from Vice Chair Woods. So,
Okay.
yeah, 5 minutes.
That's where I am at too. Yeah, 5 minutes would be great.
Timer started
Okay.
when Kelsey says. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I'll get you back on. Thank you, board members. Let's make sure we have a quorum here. We've got 5, 6. We do have a quorum. Thank you for gathering back here, and we will continue on with agenda item 4. I'm going to turn the gavel over to, I've got Chair Earl first, but Vice Chair Wood is going to chair this portion, if that's okay. So, Chair Earl.
Thank you. We have, let me pull it up real quick. So we had 2 meetings. We had our original meeting and which was our normal standards and assessment. We went through a number of revisions and discussion points related to the 250th resolution that the board is working on. And then we had a special meeting as well. And from that meeting, let me go back out here so I can pull up. We have a recommended action for the board. And let me pull up my final motion here. So the motion that came out of committee was that the board approve the resolution commemorating America's 250th birthday and her guiding foundational principles, draft 4. So that's what's coming before this body.
All right, so we have a motion that the board approved the resolution commemorating America's 250th birthday and her guiding foundational principles, draft 4. And we have Chair Hymas.
Thank you. I just have a substitute motion if I could. And then I will wait for a second if it comes to speak to it. If not, then we'll move on. So I move that the board approve the resolution commemorating America's 250th birthday and her guiding foundational principles, Hymas draft, and that's not an ego move. It's just what it's called right now. Thank you.
Here we have a motion and a second. Would you like to speak to that?
Yes, thank you. So what I've done here is I watched both of the law and license, or not law and license. I did watch law and licensing. Don't get me wrong. Standards and assessment meetings. Listened to the debate, the conversation, the direction that the committee was going in, and then I took their draft 4, looked at that, and said, okay, we are a general educational body and we have general supervision of our schools. And so I tried to take that draft 4 and make something that could potentially, not saying that it would be used, but could potentially be used by educators and parents throughout the state if they chose to reference a resolution, which I think would be the first time in the history of America that somebody referenced a resolution in a. But anyway, I just tried to put something together that would speak in a general sense, supporting and showing our love and appreciation for not only America and its guiding principles, but the Declaration of Independence, our founding fathers, and how we can use that. And so this is the result of that. I have received some feedback, and I will tell you, I'm always open to amendments. But I will tell the board and the public, if you don't like it, you don't like it. Let's not beat it up. Let's just vote on it. That's my opinion. We've had some discussions on some changes to like, hey, let's put some whereas in here. But the whereas and the be it resolved, they align right now in this draft. And so I'm personally hesitant to go through and make a whole lot of changes here. But again, I understand that this is before the body. This is not Matt Hymas's ego. This is the body's work. So I recognize that, and thank you for the opportunity to speak to that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Do we have any discussion to this item? Okay, Member Brinton.
No, I appreciate the thoughtfulness and the collaboration. I just really like draft 4 that came out of committee better. I think it's stronger to honor our Declaration of Independence.
Thank you. I'm not seeing any lights. So, Member Davis.
I'm sorry I missed the initial motion when I walked in, but I think we're voting on Member Chair Hymas's draft. Yeah, I would just add I would move to add are you asking us not to do this, Chair Hymas, because there's a be it resolved, you don't want us to add to your.
This is not mine anymore. It is the body's. You can do what you will with it. I'm sorry, Vice Chair. I just jumped right in.
You did.
I'm rude. I apologize. I will wait for your.
Yes. Will I open a Pandora's box? I mean, I like one of the be it resolved. Never mind. I'm just gonna pull it because this could turn into a big several hour thing. Thanks.
It appears to me we're moving to a vote. Member Hall.
No.
Oh, that motion fails 6-8 with those in the affirmative, Member Davis, Member Booth, Member Rill, Member Lear, Member Wood, and Chair Hymas. So that goes back to our original motion of draft 4. Is there any discussion to that? Member Brinton.
No, I wanted to possibly just amend draft 4 if we could pull that up with the last be it resolved. In talking with Matt Hymas and stuff before, I thought his be it resolved on what our State Board of Education is reaffirming, rather than trying to make our affirmation the same as the Founding Fathers with our lives, our fortunes, our sacred honor. We're not really in a time of war where people are going to come after us for our homes and our lives and our jobs over this resolution. So I thought it was maybe a good compromise to sub in his be it finally resolved and in place of our last one. And
do you have language to that before you speak to it in a second?
Yes, I sent that by email this morning. And either the language that I sent could be teed up, or that is added, just that the Utah State Board of Education is added after Declaration of Independence in the current be it finally resolved. Does that make sense?
So are you're striking?
So that's what I would like for discussion. Should we start with that be it resolved at the end and go through the part where it says the Declaration of Independence, and then add in
Okay,
that
let's get your language, because
Okay.
you don't really debate a motion. So let's
Okay,
put
sorry.
the motion on. Are you striking the last in your motion? Are you striking
So
the
what
last resolved?
okay, in my motion, I would strike on lines 39 through 42 that we are endowed, because that's already stated up above. So I would strike after Declaration of Independence, those words. That's already been stated up above. Line 39 is in draft 4.
Yeah, go to draft 4, which is right above Chair Hymas's in our backup.
So it says that this Utah State Board of Education reaffirms its commitment to the principles upheld in the Declaration of Independence. And its commitment, and then I would add the words, its commitment to public education that strengthens understanding of America's constitutional heritage and prepares students to sustain the principles of liberty, equality before the law, and self-government for the nation's next 250 years.
Okay, is there a second to that? Okay, we have a second. Now would you like to speak to it?
So I was just trying to find a place of compromise between his concerns with the last be it resolved statement and just what we're trying to put out, recognizing I don't believe this is going to be used to teach classes in classrooms, but it sends such a beautiful message to our agency, to the LEAs, that what we are committed to and that we are celebrating this divine, like I say divine, but this amazing Declaration of Independence that is having its 250th birthday. To me, that's the focus that we want to cheer on and herald and support for the next generations. I don't know that we'll ever have another 250th birthday. So thanks.
Okay, thank you, Member Green.
I know that there actually has been a lot of compromise. We've gone from a 3-page document to a 1-page and a 2-paragraph currently in draft 4. I don't hate Chair Hymas's ending, but I do feel that in drafts 4 original, or the further resolved, and I'll just read it, that this Utah State Board of Education reaffirms its commitment to the principles upheld in the Declaration of Independence, that we are endowed by the Creator with inalienable rights. It is with a firm reliance on the protection of divine providence that we mutually pledge together our lives and fortunes and sacred honor in preservation of America and her next 250 years. To say that we are not in a place where we're under battle. We've never been under more battle. We've seen the flag burned, degraded. It's upside down more than it's right side up. We have a generation of college students that do not respect what we have. We have immigrants coming. We have students from other countries that are coming. And I know this because I speak with them. I live with them. I have been to their graduations, and they think our nation is nothing but racist. And our history is degrading and horrible and ugly. And they are not proud to be here. They're just seeking education to leave because they have come out of being educated to hate our nation. Never before have we been in a place since 250 years where we have to actually give some energy and thought and pledge together that we can be continually united for our lives, our fortunes, and sacred honor in preserving America. We have seen more attacks on this nation and any Western ideal than any other time. Because, first of all, there's something to attack. This declaration. This young generation, if I may argue, actually doesn't value this. They are so free to let it go. Never have we seen a more socialist, believing young generation. We've already stripped out everything
that gives a historical account of what it has taken to secure this nation. It's already gone. To say that there's nothing to battle, that there is no battle, is ignorant. And I know speaking this loud and this strong only gets people, I'm seeing eyes rolling, I'm seeing nervous behavior, but it just needs to be said. At what point do we come out of a place of denial and say this generation is a generation that actually needs to understand our history, and we should not be cowards to it. We should not continue to invite these concepts, this history, this battle, this unique battle out of these public realms. I would ask that we would not eliminate draft 4's last paragraph. I would ask that we keep that. I would ask that this generation of students has a body that has an opportunity to put forward a resolution. We resolve every day we come here to these meetings. Each of us is a board member. We resolve to carry the history, the honor, the humility, the delicacy, this delicate topic of freedom. We resolve. That is a resolution. And it should be that this generation understands actually what was foundational to this document. That's the purpose. And yeah, they pledged their lives, their fortunes, and their sacred honor. That never goes out of style. That is something that actually never goes away with any person that ever lives. Ever. And I would ask that we would vote no for this, and that we might, please, rightfully so, call upon that valor that even we saw with the stirrings, and if I may, the stirrings that Charlie Kirk had it reinvigorated onto the campuses of our institutions. He spoke with that last paragraph. He was unashamed. And if I may say and remind us, he had a group of people, a lot of people, that didn't like that. In our own state, we saw what it takes to speak with that kind of confidence. And if we don't think there's a battle, we're too comfortable yet. And I don't know how we could be so comfortable when the greatest assassination of the world, if I may, in our modern age happened just down the road from us. We hardly gave a nod to it. It was embarrassing, almost the silence. Yes, there is a battle. The resolution makes that battle, and it's a valiant one. And our young kids, they need to understand what's at stake right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Bogus.
Thank you. I move to amend the amendment.
Would you like to put that out there?
Yeah, I would move that we keep the language as written and capitalize the D in divine to match the language above.
Is there a second? Member Davis.
It wouldn't the amendment would be to capitalize the D. There's already a motion on the floor to keep the language. So we need to vote to capitalize the D first and then to keep the language second.
Well, I do have to ask if this motion's in order, because the way you would maintain the original language is to strike this motion down. So I don't know that your motion is in order.
Well, then my language is to strike the motion, strike the language presented, keep the language as written, and capitalize the D.
Yes, so you would vote against this motion, because you can't go back to a previous motion until the motion on the floor is taken. So you would strike this motion and then make your motion afterwards to capitalize the D, if this motion fails.
So technically this is in order, but I understand your point.
Because you're just going back to the original motion and changing the D.
Mm-hmm.
So
Which is
strike this one down.
Not to me, no.
Member Kelly?
No, I'll just maybe clarify, but if Member Britton's motion gets voted down, then we're back to the original motion, and then we could make a motion to capitalize D. Right? So you're suggesting vote on the amendment, and then if the amendment fails, then we can capitalize the D. Okay. I call the question.
There's no lights on, so would we need to vote on calling the question? Right. She's in the queue. So we'll go ahead and vote on this. Sorry, we'll go ahead and move to strike lines 39 and 32 and amend the last. Be it resolved with the amendment below. Be it finally resolved that the Utah State Board of Education reaffirms its commitment to the principles upheld in the Declaration of Independence, and that public education strengthens understanding of Americans' constitutional heritage and prepares students to sustain the principles of liberty, equality before the law, and self-government for the nation's next 250 years. Member Hall?
Yes.
Yes. Member Bollinger?
Yes.
All right, that motion passes 12-3. The no votes are Member Green, Member Kelly, and Member Bogus. So that takes us back to our original motion for draft 4 as amended. Member Rill.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to make a motion to amend draft 4 and delete lines 28 through 33.
Second.
All right, we have a motion to amend draft 4 by deleting lines 28 through 33 with a second from Member Lear. Would you like to speak to that?
Yes, thank you. We've worked really hard on this, and as Member Britton mentioned, and I think that although I prefer Chair Hymas's draft, I teach political science, which means I teach the Declaration of Independence every semester. So 3 times a year, I get to sit with students and talk to them about this and talk about the history of our country and these principles of liberty and equality and natural rights. And it's very exciting for me. It's something I care deeply about. And I'm excited to get this and to celebrate the 250 years of the Declaration of Independence. But I think that lines 28 through 33 take away from the purpose. And I think that it veers a little bit too far into into things that I think take away from what we're trying to get, which is to get students passionate and caring and deeply understand our history and the importance of the Declaration of Independence and of our republic. And I don't think lines 28 through 33 do that.
Member Lear?
I also preferred Chair Hymas's version, but I think this would be a good improvement. I did a little research. I'm not a constitutional scholar, but I did a little research in this to see if what I did remember and what I have discussed through the law for many years was still a consistent understanding. And I sent a text to a couple of people. And though I believe the Constitution itself was divinely inspired, I don't believe, and as is so often said, that these were religious men. For the most part, they were not. They were very vanilla believers in some cases, and many were not. And so I just want to read this short statement that I found and combined from a variety of sources. Some were traditional believers, Protestants, Anglicans, Congregationalists. Some of the influencers, Thomas Paine, Franklin, Ethan Allen, James Monroe, even Washington, were deists. Per the Encyclopedia Britannica, although Orthodox Christians participated at every stage of the new republic, deism, a movement of equality and reason, influenced the majority of the founders. So I think it is a mistake to interject religion throughout this. I do think we can acknowledge the freedom of religion aspects of it, but to do otherwise is to be exclusive to those who don't believe as we do. I appreciated Member Green's passionate speech, but I think there are a number of equally passionate people who sincerely look at not the parts that are sacred honor and those kinds of parts I feel equally passionate about. But I think the interjection of the religious aspects of this, aside from in passing the way it is now, I think are inappropriate and unnecessary and not specific to the civics and the government aspect of this that's so crucial.
Thank you. Member Brinton, and then Member Hall is online.
I understand the arguments. I would just say, even though those top three were deists, they all believed that religion was necessary to keeping social order and that it was good. The original schools that we started with set out to teach religion in school, the basics of religion, not one religion, but just we are a Judeo-Christian nation that was founded on these principles. It was acknowledged. We had days of prayer and fasting. And so I would just speak against taking those out, because this is about honoring the Declaration of Independence and the founders and the principles that they founded it on. It's amazing that it's turning 250 years. So I would just speak to keep that in. Thanks.
Thank you, Member Hall, and then we have Member Green. Member Green.
So I just maybe wanted to expound a little bit about the Northwest Ordinance itself. And I understand that maybe the words we're scared of is a moral and religious people being too moral and religious statement, like too godly or something. But if I may, the Northwest Ordinance made some connections that actually clarified the Declaration of Independence. It applied it into the expansion of the United States. So it guarantees religious freedom. It protects trial by jury and due process. It prohibits cruel punishment, the abstract ideas that they were creating at that time, their rights enforced by law, directly by echoing the Declaration's philosophy itself. It also expands that settlers elect a legislature once population thresholds were met. Territories then transitioned into full statehood, equal to existing states. It matters because there's no permanent colonies, and then there was no second-class status. So then you go on to equality. So new states enter the Union on equal footing. Slavery is prohibited in the territory. Then you have the rule of law. The Northwest Ordinance connections the government is bounded by the written law. Rights cannot be overridden by territorial officials. Education is promoted to sustain Republican government. Historical intent matters. So the ordinance reflects how the founders themselves understood and applied the Declaration's principles in their expanded practice. It actually is so important. And this is again why we have to give our young students the opportunity to even be able to Google something to expand their knowledge. Being specific and saying the Northwest Ordinance of 1987, if you don't know that, you're going to Google it. If you're a teacher, you want to learn more about it, you're going to put a lesson together. It expands into so many different ways that the Declaration of Independence was then translated into action. And those things matter. So I think it's very relevant. We're in the realm of education. Let's educate our kids and expand it. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we will move ahead to a vote on the motion to delete lines 28 through 33. Member Hall?
No.
Member Bollinger? Okay, that motion fails with 2 yeses, 1 abstain. The yeses are Member Rill and Member Lear. The abstain is Member Bollinger. Okay, do we have any other? Are we ready to vote on the underlying motion? The underlying motion would be to vote on draft 4 as amended. Okay, we'll go ahead with the vote. Member Bollinger?
Yes.
We're missing 1. That motion passes unanimously, 15-0. Thank you. We'll turn the time back to Chair Hymas.
Thank you. And over to Chair Earl.
That completes the Standards and Assessment Committee, and I just want to thank everyone. There was a lot of discussion. There's been a lot of discussion over the last several weeks, and I think it is important that we get something out at the first of the year. Others are celebrating and recognizing, and it was interesting yesterday. I listened. It was like the anniversary of the Electoral College. The first vote for president took place many years ago for George Washington, and just the recognizing, these great people, how they came about these things, and how we move forward as a nation. So I appreciate all the hard work. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. That was painful, but we got there. So thank you.